So we doing to go live.
Is it live now?
It's live now. It's gonna take
Oh,
about probably 30 seconds to get to you,
oh, there it is.
and then
Now.
you tell me, can you hear me?
Okay, it can hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
Misha, say something.
Hola.
There it is.
And then you tell me, can you hear
Okay,
me?
it can hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
Misha, say something.
Hola.
Got it. We're all good.
Okay. All right.
All of that is at the beginning of this video too. All of it.
Okay. Cool. Let me get Misha in there all the way. Yep. All right. Uh. Thinking out loud, you know what this is. It's your boy J Lip, TOL podcast.com, and we back at it again, yet again, and again. We do what we do. Let's talk that talk Tuesday, and we got some special people in the building tonight. As usual, you know how your boy Lip do. I gotta have the missus in the building. Mrs. Lip, how you feeling? Blessed and highly favored, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, with that being said, we're gonna skip to it. We got this one lady I know. You know, we might resemble each other a little bit. You know, she helping your boy out with the topics tonight. I had to reach deep and pay her a lot of money for this, but we got the featured guest, Misha Lipsy, aka Misha King, aka MiMi, aka my little sister. Misha, I love you. How you feeling?
Good.
You feeling good? All right. Well, we're gonna leave it at that. Let's go ahead and dive into these topics because time is limited. I want to make sure everyone knows first and foremost, well, I guess second and second most, that this is Thinking Out Loud, TOLpodcast.com. However, we got two special projects going on tonight. At 7 p.m., you can catch Tony doing what, babe?
I'll be giving some business advice about Etsy versus Shopify on Instagram
Okay, and they can find you on Instagram
at TL Yarn Crafts.
at TL Yarn Crafts. And then Mimi, what you got going on tonight at 7 p.m.?
7 p.m. Join MiMi live, having a relevant conversation, empowering women. What's the topic tonight? Should I test drive before I buy?
Ooh, should I test drive it before I buy? We talking about what? A car or a man? Okay, here we go. Cardi B in the building. So, with that being said, now I want everybody to give a little bit of credence to this special episode because we have somebody who is actually a subject matter expert on this topic. The topic tonight is, you know, basically teachers, guns matter. So, Misha is a teacher. Tell them where you at. Or what side of we'll say the country you're a teacher at. We don't want to give too much information. We don't want to get you
Right.
fired
Yep, on.
because you will be fucking with this show. So go ahead.
OMG. I would say the eastern part of the country.
Okay. Do you say the Midwest?
The, whatever. Okay.
And you're a teacher, and let them get your credentials real quick. So
Right.
what's
I'm a
going
special
on?
education teacher, and I teach at a K through 8th public charter school.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
All right. So you teach at a public charter school. You're a special education teacher.
Yes.
First question I got to ask you. The first question on the docket. How did this most recent school shooting down in Florida affect you or make you feel as a person who is not a teacher in a school district that really relates or is aligned with the type of school district that was affected in Florida? And what I mean by that is, to be quite honest, we thinking out loud, we talking that talk. That was a pretty nice looking environment, a pretty safe and non-cultured type of school environment, and I feel like yours may be different. So tell me, how did that resonate with you as a educator?
So, my school isn't nice.
Nah, it ain't shit. Nah, your
Right,
school
I
ain't
caught
shit.
that too. I was like, what you trying to say?
know.
Your school ain't shit. Go
My
ahead.
school is actually one of the nicer ones
Okay,
in
in the
the
hood. Go
area.
ahead.
And I think every school shooting that comes about, there's some type of measure or a fear or just something that strikes us, not just the staff, but the parents as well of their children. And the school immediately thinks of how can we better protect our staff and our students. So I think my mind goes right into, okay, if this, could this happen to us? I mean, a lot of these shootings are happening in random places. It could be us. It could be in a well-known city. It could be in a little country school. So it just brings to attention our safety in our school and things that we need to do to make sure that we're being as preventative as possible. But again, a lot of the time we are putting preventative measures in, but somehow, some way, people are finding a loophole in that. And I think no matter how much you can try to prevent it, to some degree, there still may be a loophole where somebody can come and do something awful, as what happened in Florida.
All right, I agree with you 100%. I also want to say too, just to make sure everybody hears you clearly, if there's anything blocking your mic, you got a little muffled, and I just want to make sure we clear. We want to hear it clearly, So just putting that out there. Regardless, your point was still heard and it was taken as valid. Mrs. Lip, what you think about what was said and what was done, rather?
What do you mean?
As far as the shooting is concerned, what do you take away from that? Being a person, potential, mother, and having your own kids in that type of environment, or even any environment, as Misha spoke to, or Mimi spoke to. What do you think about that?
I would definitely say, as someone who does not have school-age children, it affects me differently. I think just as a whole, I look at the things happening in our world, and I'm always concerned about my unborn children and what they'll have to deal with, because I feel like things just progressively get worse. I feel like we're almost hearing about school shootings like almost right on top of each other, as in before it would maybe be 3, 6 months, 12 months in between. So it's definitely concerning. It's always just terrible when it happens, but I mean, I process it a little bit differently, and I think, we all have our different perspectives on it, but it's always just a really sad thing to hear about.
No, absolutely, and I agree with you. I guess we kind of got to transition that point to, okay, we feel bad, it sucks, this is the life that we are living in. Misha, you brought up the fact that there could be more defensive or preventative measures. How do you feel about the offensive proposal? The offensive proposal of keeping the teacher strapped with the heat on the sidearm, so they can basically just pull out and blast on the fool that come in there. You know what I'm saying? We just shooting them hot ones at them. Like, how do you feel as an educator, as someone who is the closest to being impacted by this type of legislation? How would you feel if your school told you were required, and we're going to break it down, it's not a requirement yet, but if you were required to carry a firearm as your sidearm to protect the school and the students that you're responsible for?
Honestly, you don't have time to grab your firearm if someone's in the building.
Okay.
And, there's a cold, whatever, and there's no time. If you think about the shooting that happened in Florida, no one knew that this person was in the building, shooting until you heard it. And at that time, your first response isn't to get your firearm. Your first response is to get the students who may be in the hallway or in your classroom to safety, and lock doors. And so like some of the preventative measures like we use is making sure your door is locked at all times.
Okay.
And really making sure that at dismissal, because this I think happened during dismissal, making sure the dismissal procedures, like no one is being allowed in the building if you have not gone through the office first.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, it actually didn't happen during dismissal, but what happened was there was a known or a planned active shooter training event that was occurring. And so this wasn't an event that occurred like end of day dismissal. This was like something where, someone pulled the fire alarm and everybody's running crazy, and then my man came in and just started spraying. From what I understand, he even hid himself amongst the crowd of students as he was exiting the facility, and then he got caught. Obviously because you got a big ass gun. But with that being said, you say that you aren't comfortable carrying that
Yeah.
firearm?
No, I'm not comfortable. Like, I'm not comfortable having a firearm in my home.
Okay.
So, I would not be comfortable. I don't think, this won't happen anytime soon, a requirement for me to carry a firearm. And I think that if that becomes a requirement, I think that we've kind of failed as a school of saying that we need to have a gun in order to keep our children safe. As a mom of school-age children, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my student's teacher having a gun in the classroom. I don't know the mental, hopefully the mental capacity of the teachers, right? But there's multiple times where staff has to, you just never know who can grab a hold of that.
Exactly.
Child.
Kids get into the oddest of places. You can hide stuff in the crib. Your kids get into some stuff, and you're like, how the hell did you?
And if you try to protect, like say if it's in a locked location in the classroom, again, you do not have time to go to that.
Right,
that
put
location.
your fingerprint on it, put the PIN code in.
Right. Again, your first order is to protect the students around you. It's like you have to put yourself in danger first. Make sure everybody else is to safety. You don't have time.
Got you.
So again, I think just going back to how can we keep our schools safer by monitoring who comes in and out of the building. And I think every school shooting, there's been some degree of measure that has been taken to keep our schools safer. And sadly, we don't know what the next step is until another shooting. Until a shooting happens.
You right. No,
So,
you're right. And I want to also say real quick, big ups to the people that's following us, watching this right now. We love and appreciate y'all. Venus Lipsy said, hello, Miss Lipsy. So I assume, whoa, what just happened?
We lost you, Misha.
Got it.
Okay, we back. I said I wanted to show love and a shout out to Venus Lipsy that said hello, Miss Lipsy. So I assume that's Mrs. Lip. So, but it could also be my sister, Miss Lipsy, formerly. So shout out to both of y'all from Venus. And then my big bro, Chris Fry, C. Fry, said that's not the answer when it comes to the guns. He's saying metal detectors at the door, locked from the outside, at least one security guard, protect the schools like the government buildings. What do y'all think about that?
I completely agree. I've always been an advocate of having stricter security measures in schools. I think it's ridiculous when you hear people say, like, I don't want that in my school. Like, it makes your school nicer if you don't need to protect it. Clearly, we're at a point in our society where all of our schools need to be fully protected. And I like the analogy of comparing it to government buildings, because these are places that are public facilities where children from that entire school district are going. You never really know who all is in the school, and it shouldn't be like that. There should be more strict measures to make sure our students are safe, to make sure our children can go someplace where we're not and be safe.
Absolutely. Misha, you agree?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Very simple and straightforward. All right. So we know it's not a requirement yet. Now, here's what strikes me as odd. What they're saying is they don't want to go down the route, or they haven't mentioned going down the pathway of making sure that you have armed security at each school. But what they're saying is we're going to offer the option for teachers who volunteer to be trained and prepped with a firearm. And to me, that changes a school from a gun-free zone to a gun-full zone. Like, if you have a school of teachers, let's say your school got 12, 15 teachers, maybe 20. That's 20 guns on campus that if somebody decides to make fun of Mr. Barnes or whoever the substitute teacher is that day, he might be like, man, fuck this shit. I'm tired of you making fun of me, and I'm pulling out my gun and I'm gonna shoot you. The narrative in our environment, in our culture, up until this point, especially for people of color, we've oftentimes, too many times, heard, "I feared for my life." I hate that phrase. I feared for my life, because there's not a single thing or a single event in our own personal lives that we deal with where we say, I was about to get pulled over, but I feared for my life, so I just kept going. Or I had to steal this meal from this restaurant because someone was approaching, and I feared for my life. But when it comes to law enforcement and when it comes to people outside of the culture, when they fear for their life, I almost feel like it's not fair to say that you fear for your life as a justification for taking a life. And so my question to y'all is more so, how do we gauge the sanity and the levity of these educators when it comes to their ability to pull out what is a lethal weapon at a moment that they quote unquote have fear, whether that's an active shooter, whether that's someone that's standing up in class and approaching them? Like, how do you discern between that? Like, what do you guys think about that? Because that's my concern with saying, if you volunteer, I'm looking at the list like, let me know every single person that volunteers to have a gun at school, write their name down and do the most thoroughest of background checks so we can find out if they even need to be a teacher, because there may be some alternative motives there. What you think, Misha?
Sorry, had to maintain children.
No, it's all good. You was just trying to do a little humble brag, showing us your crib. We got you. Nice curtains, by the way. Nice curtains.
Nice curtains.
I don't even know the question.
The question... here's my thought on it. And the question is basically, how do we justify and thoroughly vet teachers to have firearms at schools?
Exactly.
Before we even answer a question like that, I guess my issue is I do not feel like guns in schools are a viable option. We have not exhausted every other opportunity there is to protect our children. And aside from that, if teachers don't have enough to worry about while they're at school, they have to worry about a gun in their desk. I can't even count on my fingers and toes how many stories I've seen on the news about children getting into lock boxes with guns that are supposed to be put away and safely stored and hurting themselves or others. So, and then I think to myself, okay, I don't want my 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old children, little babies, around a gun. Like, there's so many reasons in my head to make me think that guns should not be in school, should not be held by teachers. And then I think the last thing is, we already asked them to do so much, and we're not paying teachers for anything extra. We're going to put them through this training to basically risk taking a life or losing their own, and we won't even, to a degree, give them a living wage. So, I mean, before you ask a teacher to do anything else, why don't we talk about how we pay our teachers and what we make them responsible for?
I'm with you. I think Misha gave you 2 snaps and a kiss. So with that being said, I will also say that we definitely need to look at teachers' wages first and foremost. They make too much damn money, for doing nothing. Basically, they're like glorified babysitters, and I feel like With that being said, Misha, you agree clearly with Tony, right?
Yeah.
Last thing you need to be worrying about is leaping to your desk drawer to grab a gun while somebody kicking in the door and the bullets is already flying. And I'm with you on that. I guess we kind of transition. If you agree, and I agree, and she agree, well, let's address the next point that was made by the government, which is also potentially arming each school with security. And the concern that there is the financial piece. If we can barely afford to pay our teachers what they are due based off of the services that they provide to our community and to our youth and the next generation, how the hell are we going to afford to pay for an armed security guard to patrol every school in America? What do you think about that, Misha?
That's a tricky one, because I can see the benefit of having a security guard present on the campus. But, I mean, again, we had There was a situation at our school where a couple students had gotten into a physical altercation. So for the next like 2-3 days, we had a security guard posted in the building. This is
Okay.
not a police officer. So this guy looked like if he could run maybe two steps. Like
He,
one, two,
he, he,
yeah.
he had a
So,
flashlight. He had a flashlight and a cell phone.
um,
I said he had a flashlight and a cell phone,
yeah,
so he could
yeah,
shine the light while he trying to chase him and then call for help when he run out of breath.
yeah. I think
Okay.
having one, I mean, it's difficult because that security officer was bored the whole day. Like each day it was like I'm just
Well, of
walking up.
course, he want to shoot somebody. He gonna be bored.
If you're down the kindergarten hallway and the intruder comes in by in the front of the school, what's he gonna do? Like what is he gonna do? Like there's nothing he can do. So I mean the point of should we pay? Is it more expensive or should we pay? I mean I don't think we should. I mean some people may disagree, but again, what other measures can we take? What other things can we exhaust before?
Well, you're the teacher here, so you tell us. So you tell us
Well,
you're
I
a
agree
teacher of
with
special education. So
the
so your
yeah.
barriers are a little higher even than I won't say a regular teacher, but I will say like a teacher of a traditional education. Your barriers are even higher because you're dealing with what I feel like is a higher level of patience and just overall what's required of you is different. What's required of a traditional first through you said kindergarten through eighth grade that you teach.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
even for you, you're trying to manage the behavior of the kids. You're trying to manage the comprehension and the learning, and being called to task to also be able to shoot accurately at a potential
Mhm.
predator. So if we take
Mhm.
it back to the original question of paid in-house security, are we saying that as a country we're willing to make sure that we pay enough taxes to accommodate so that every school, not just a school in Florida, but also not just a school in the hood, can afford to have somebody on site that's sole purpose is to walk the building and shoot anybody who doesn't make it past a hall sweep? Go ahead.
Well, I think if we speak logically about the situation and talk about having like armed security, I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from, Misha, with having some trepidation about having a security guard. I don't think having a security guard is sufficient. I would almost take it a step further in saying having an armed, trained police officer on staff would be the most appropriate form of action for this, because then you have someone who is truly trained, someone who is truly enmeshed in what it means to protect and serve, who is responsible, who takes personal responsibility for everyone who's in that building. I can't imagine that, your average run-of-the-mill top flight security guard is going to be all that concerned about every single life in that building. So, I mean, if you're going to do it, I feel like you need to do it right. And I think it should be a police officer and not just a off-the-street security guard.
I agree with you, babe. I think that it needs to be someone who is not just a little bit gun happy with the responsibility of being able to patrol and have a reason. Because a lot of times you hear like, cats be like, give me a reason. I'm looking for a reason. And I feel like true, it should be something that, in my opinion, almost is voluntary. It would be nice if we had enough people or enough law enforcement agents who could volunteer their time to perform this service. However, we know everybody got to eat. The school that we all actually ironically went to in high school, we had a truancy officer, Officer James, and he was a retired police officer. I think he was an active detective. Even at my job, we have active police. We have an active detective or an active actual officer working our security as well. So again, to C. Fry's point, Chris Fry saying, we need to treat schools more so like government buildings. Hell yeah, because we have the same type of precious cargo on board. If you want to protect a government building because you want to make sure that your state senator doesn't get shot, people have the same type of love and level of concern over their children. So these are kids. They can do nothing.
Right.
So with all that being said, I think that with this conversation, we pretty much are all in alignment. I want to kind of close it out with this. We don't have the answers moving forward. We don't know how to stop it. I do want to, and this is just again a curveball, but I want to ask both of you before we end it with our last thoughts. There's a lot of talk about protecting yourself against insanity or protecting yourself against mental illness. And how is it that when we see instances of these shootings, they more predominantly tend to be in environments that lack, I will say, people of color, to be politically correct, and to be politically incorrect, I say in the hood, niggas ain't shooting up the schools that they go to. They'll be like, exact. Say it again. Say it again, because I cut you off. Say it again. They show ain't.
No, you sure not.
Right. So at the schools in the hood, like if a nigga got a problem with another dude, he like, man, I see you outside, and they square up, they shoot the five, and then they bounce, and they go their separate ways, and sometimes they even become friends afterwards. Me, in my instances, no. If I got my ass whooped by you, I'm staying away because you're dangerous. However, moving forward, you don't see these instances as much as in these hood environments, and I got to get this point up to my bro Levi Tripp. Why is it that we see so much media coverage when it comes to statistics of all the violence that's happening in the hood in Detroit and Flint and Chicago and Compton, but then when it comes to these school shootings with these Caucasians, we seem to have a different tone in the media that almost says, little Billy, man, he lost his mom and he wasn't taking his medicine and he had a bad day, he just had to let out some steam. And that steam took lives. Why do we have a disparity in the media between black violence in the culture when it comes to education, when it comes to schools, and white violence? Why is that? And I want to get both of y'all opinions before we wrap this up. Real quick. Go, Misha. Or go, Tony. It looked like you was about to say something.
I would say that I disagree with you when it comes to these school shootings. I don't think that any of these shooters are ever getting a pass. What I've seen in the media is they are literally dragging up everything that they can about these people. So broken homes, divorce, mental issues.
But it's all bad. But my concern with that is it's always background stuff. Like it's almost sounding like justifications. Like, oh, here's why he flipped. It's because, like in the instance of the Florida shooter, he lost both of his parents. He's living with a friend's family. So they're giving you this leverage to say, okay, I have empathy for that. But then I
don't think that's the purpose of pulling up that information.
But then why is it that when it's a black shooter, even out of school, you see backgrounds of, oh, he was arrested 17 times and he used to sell weed and, he got 7 baby mamas, and like they bring out the negative rap sheet when it comes to black people.
And they bring out the negative rap sheet for them too. It just happens to be ours is like selling weed and baby mamas, and theirs is mental issues and divorce. I mean, we have different backgrounds. But it's all bad.
Okay.
It's all bad. We're all committing crimes. It's not pulled up to be as any kind of excuse. I think that information about those school shooters is pulled up for the same reason they pull up information about us. It's for judgment. It's for just to put another nail in the coffin when it comes time for them to get their day in court, if they even make it there. It's not to make any kind of excuse or to empathize with anyone. I don't agree with that.
For the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and just say we gonna have to disagree on that, because I do believe that there's a terrible disparity between that perception. But I want Misha basically to be the tiebreaker and tell us what you think, because I think you agree with me. I think I saw you nod your head, you smiled a little bit. I see you cheesing. Go ahead, you laughing. And let me put in perspective real quick. The picture that they showed of when they choked out my man in New York who was selling the loose cigarettes. They choked that man out for selling loose cigarettes and killed him due to asphyxiation. The picture that they showed when the young man in Florida was arrested was them kindly handcuffing him on the ground alive and taking him in to see his day in court. And of course, the worst case situation is a Dylan Roof who shot up a church, and then they took him to damn Burger King on the way to the jail cell. So, Misha, what are your opinion, or where do you lie in this argument on the perspective of the hood schools being these dangerous areas versus these white suburban schools getting shot the hell up?
I mean, I think when I think of mental illness, we have a lot of I teach children who are mentally ill and have families that are mentally ill. But I mean, I always think of the root cause of what's the real problem here. How did this child, whether white or black, like I think of their background and how did that background even begin? Like why is there such a big issue with fostering or adoptive or parents being mentally ill and having children? I have a whole theory about that. People need to be mentally tested before they can have children now.
We'll talk about that on the next one. But do you agree or do you disagree with the fact that there's a different media spin when it comes to the shootings and the violence in hood communities? Or no?
I think she made a good point. Like, we have different backgrounds. Black people's backgrounds is baby mamas and weed, and white people's
background, okay.
White people's background is different, and I mean, I thought the same thing though, Janelle. Like, I don't see. I mean, black people. My name is Lip. If you have an issue with someone, you go to that person. I mean, they went. I mean, our children. Like, there's one thing you don't touch is my kids or your kids. Like, I'm gonna take it up with you, but it's something different. With white, I don't think it's a white people thing. It's just happens to be.
I know you tiptoeing. I see how you tiptoeing. So we're gonna end it on this. It's your boy J Lip. I'm gonna give the last word to our special guest. First and foremost, actually, I'm gonna give the last word to my wife, of whom we've been married 8 years this past Monday. Baby, what is your last word? Give me 15 seconds. Go.
Me?
Yes, your takeaway for the episode for the people to know. Go.
My takeaway is watch your children. Watch whatever children are in your house. Make sure you have an eye on them and know what's going on. Don't let stuff slide. It's not just see something, say something. Say something all the time. Just always be saying something.
Okay.
Don't let it slide that you don't know what's going on with your kid. That's not okay.
Amen. And then Mish is our special guest. Last word, 15 seconds. Go. What you want the people to know?
Parents and people who are not teachers, know that your schools are taking every measure that we need to make sure our schools are safe, that your kids are safe. We shouldn't blame the schools. What the schools are or not doing, we are doing everything that we can think of, and your voice matters. So bring on your ideas and don't be afraid to speak on them in a constructive manner.
All right. Well, y'all both got to go because y'all got some live streams to do in about 12 minutes. With that being said, it's your boy J Lip. We love and appreciate y'all. We know you're going to see this on the replay. And with that being said, TOLpodcast.com if you want to catch it. Catch at TL Yarncrafts for her live stream on Instagram. And catch what again, Mish?
MiMi Live.
MiMi Live on Facebook Live?
Yes.
On Facebook Live, 7 p.m. now. Is that every Tuesday?
Every other Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday, because she got shit to do. She got children to protect and guns to load. So with that being said, it's your boy J Lip. And now we all do this together. We say and then we say we out. So 1, 2, 3. And we out. Love y'all.
You gotta get on, find the beat.
Yeah. You find the beat. Peace.